This year's birthday took place in a warm atmosphere, filled with laughter among family and close friends. My husband, David, had prepared everything so thoughtfully that it truly made me feel like the luckiest person alive. But right at the moment I was about to cut the birthday cake, something unthinkable happened. David's younger sister, Victoria, suddenly stood up, interrupted me, and cut the cake herself. She coldly said, "I'm the center of this party." Her words felt like a slap in the face, making me feel as though the whole party no longer belonged to me, as if I were just an outsider. I'm David's wife, and we've been married for 8 years. During that time, our marriage has been relatively stable, although not exactly perfect. Our life has been nothing to complain about, aside from a few small arguments over trivial matters. I love him, and I believe he loves me too. He's a considerate husband, always helping me with housework, taking care of me when I'm sick, and sometimes he even makes me feel like the luckiest woman in the world. But it was precisely in those peaceful moments that I started to feel something was off. A sense of unease I couldn't explain. Every time David was away, I had the feeling that a shadow was following him, something I couldn't quite identify. How could I describe the suspicion? It wasn't a clear betrayal. It was more like a vague feeling, an absence I couldn't put my finger on, as if a part of him was always hidden, always just out of reach. All those doubts seemed to stem from one person, Victoria, David's sister. She is a woman who always tends to place herself at the center of the universe. Whenever she appears, everything around her has to make way. To Victoria, the success and happiness of others seem like excuses for her to overshadow them. She can't stand it when someone else shines more than she does. And I, during every important occasion in my life, often find myself being overshadowed by her. I still remember vividly the first time I felt Victoria's selfishness and lack of respect. It was at the engagement party between David and me. Both of us, along with our family and friends, were waiting for the big moment to officially declare our love. But just as I was about to give my speech, Victoria suddenly stood up and announced that she was engaged. Not only did she disrupt the atmosphere, but she also stole all the attention for herself. It was a shock that left me speechless, feeling like I had been robbed of the right to shine on my own special day. And that wasn't the only time. Every time there was an important celebration for me, Victoria would show up and find a way to ruin it. The next time was when I got promoted at work. My family and closest friends had gathered to celebrate, but she came bringing sarcastic remarks and ridiculous stories, turning my party into a never-ending drama. I had tried many times to brush it off, telling myself she was just impulsive, that she meant no harm. But each time I let it go, I realized that it only made her more powerful in stealing my precious moments. And then, I began to realize that I couldn't keep living in the shadows of apathy and avoidance. Every boundary has its limit. The feeling of being overshadowed by Victoria had become overwhelming, and I could no longer endure her disrespect without doing something. Something inside me had changed, and I knew that if I didn't confront her, I would forever remain an outsider in my own life. My birthday party this year was held at a cozy restaurant located in the heart of New York City. The space was gently yet elegantly decorated, with warm yellow lights hanging from the ceiling, casting a soft glow throughout the room. The scent of fresh flowers and lavish dishes filled the air, making everything feel more perfect than ever. The tables were neatly arranged, with white cloth-covered chairs, and on each table were scented candles and a few appetizers that I particularly loved. We chose a quiet corner in the restaurant, where the lighting was gentle, not too harsh, but just enough to highlight the warmth of the gathering. My closest friends, those I trust and love the most, were present, creating a truly joyful atmosphere. Everyone laughed, chatted happily, and I felt genuinely happy to be able to share this special moment with my loved ones. David, with his warm smile always present on his face, helped me prepare everything. He didn't just take care of small details like choosing the food or ordering the birthday cake. He even prepared a short speech for me, a heartfelt message that I knew he had thought through very carefully. That was one of the things I loved about him, his thoughtfulness and dedication. When I walked into the room and saw everyone gathered around, I felt a warmth inside my chest. Everything went exactly as I had imagined, like a perfect day, a day when I could truly feel the love and care of the people around me. Seeing David standing there, glowing with pride as he saw me happy, made me feel like the luckiest woman alive. I had mentally prepared myself to cut the cake, to thank everyone afterward, to say a few kind words, and to savor these moments with the people I loved. But then, just as I was about to cut the cake at my own birthday party, Victoria once again stood up. Not only did she rise unexpectedly, she even raised her glass as if the entire room belonged to her, and started making a speech in a smug tone. I'm pregnant. Immediately, the room erupted with applause and enthusiastic congratulations. Everyone turned to look at her, all smiles and cheer, surrounding her as if she had just accomplished something extraordinary. I stood frozen, not knowing what to do. A lump formed in my throat, making it impossible to say a word. My birthday cake, the one I had looked forward to all week, was no longer the centerpiece of the celebration. All the eyes of my close friends, the people I loved, were no longer on me. All the attention had suddenly shifted to Victoria. I felt like a ghost, standing silently in a space filled with laughter and cheerful blessings, while everyone had turned their backs on me. I looked around, my eyes filled with confusion and helplessness. These friends, people I had considered family, were now congratulating her as if she were the one who mattered. I couldn't even hear my own words clearly, only the overwhelming sense that I was being forgotten on my own birthday. Thank you, everyone, I mumbled awkwardly, not even sure what I was saying. The laughter, the applause, everything felt like it was drilling into my heart. At that moment, I turned to look at David, hoping he would notice the pain in my eyes and speak up for me. My eyes searched for his, hoping he would stand up, stop this moment, and protect me, his wife. But no, he just shrugged. His eyes skimmed past me indifferently, as if I meant nothing to him. Then he calmly said in a flat voice, as if nothing was worth noticing, "She just likes to make a scene, that's all." That sentence felt like a slap to my face. A cold wave washed over my entire body. Every word he spoke, every indifferent gesture, made me feel like a disposable person in his life. This entire party, everything I had done for him, seemed to not even be worth a glance, let alone a bit of protection. He spoke as if it was no big deal, but to me, it was everything. At that moment, I realized my true place in his heart. I was no longer his wife, no longer the most important person in his life. I was just a piece of his life he could discard at any time. My heart ached. I sat there, unable to move, only staring at the smiling faces around me, joyfully congratulating Victoria without even noticing that I was standing right there on my own day. My lips pressed tightly together, unable to speak a word, though my heart felt like it was breaking into pieces. That feeling, David's coldness and lack of care, was like a nail driven deep into my chest. I suddenly realized I was wrong to think he loved me, to still believe in those promises, in those happy moments he once gave me. Everything now was just a fragile shell, and I had been deceived. In that very moment, I couldn't take it anymore. Everything inside me felt like it was exploding, yet I didn't scream, I didn't make a scene. I just quietly looked into David's eyes, felt the coldness in every breath, and understood that I no longer meant anything to him. They, both Victoria and him, had changed everything. But there was one thing I knew for certain. I would not let myself drown in this feeling. The truth may be cruel, but at least now I knew I no longer had to live in the shadow of this deception. A few weeks before the birthday, I accidentally discovered a strange transaction in David's bank account. A sum of $5,000 had been transferred to an account under the name Victoria. I paused and stared at the screen. The first feeling that came over me was suspicion. Why would David send such a large amount of money to his sister? He had always said he would protect my family, but this made me feel unsettled. Still, I thought maybe I was overthinking it, so I tried to push away the unease in my heart. But then, curiosity wouldn't let me forget it. A few days later, I decided to dig deeper. I quietly kept track of the following transactions, and to my shock, I discovered that this wasn't the first time he had transferred money to Victoria. Every year, from time to time, there were large sums sent out, but I had always justified it as his way of helping his sister. Even though I already had some doubts, I hadn't yet had the courage to face the truth. Maybe I had trusted too much, loved too much to realize that something was wrong. I couldn't stop thinking about the money David had sent. Why was he helping Victoria so unconditionally? Had I been too blind to believe that my family was perfect? The more I thought about it, the more I couldn't shake the unease in my heart. So, I decided to keep investigating. One evening, when David wasn't home, I quietly took his phone out of the drawer. A heavy feeling rose in my chest as my hand touched the phone. My heart pounded, each beat tightening my throat. I knew I shouldn't be doing this, but curiosity and anxiety had overtaken all reason. I couldn't stop wondering if something was being hidden behind his coldness, something I hadn't seen, hadn't known. Unlocking the screen, I slowly swiped my finger across it, and immediately the messages popped up. Lines of text that seemed harmless, but held a world I had never seen before. Messages between David and Victoria, short exchanges I had never paid attention to before. At first, they were just typical questions like, "Are you okay?" Or, "Do you need anything?" But the more I read, the more I felt that something was off. These messages didn't feel like ordinary sibling talk. There was a tone of tenderness, of intimacy that I had never seen him express to anyone else, not even me. "Good night. I love you so much." One message from him to Victoria, sent at 11 p.m. That sentence caught in my throat. Such a simple phrase, but at that moment, it was completely unacceptable to me. He had never said that to me, had never used those words on the nights I lay next to him when we shared our dreams and hopes. And then I found another message from David to Victoria, sent on a weekend. "You won't regret it. We're going to have a wonderful family." That sentence felt like a slap to my face. My heart stopped, and numbness swept over me, making it hard to breathe. A wonderful family? The very words he once said to me, now being used for her. The feeling of betrayal was like a knife slicing deep into my heart. I couldn't breathe, as if all the air in the room had been sucked out. With trembling hands, I went back to open the bank statements. I knew I had to keep going, had to find the truth. I couldn't stop anymore. The more I checked, the more I realized that my suspicions weren't baseless. The money transfers, those seemingly harmless amounts, matched events I had previously overlooked. The dinners, the business trips, the short getaways David had taken all coincided with large transfers to Victoria. Not just once, but many times over many years. The feeling was strange, like a curtain hiding the truth was slowly being pulled back. I looked at the screen, and all the pieces began to come together. A painful picture emerged, unmistakable and undeniable. My whole body seemed to recoil, as if I were falling into a deep, bottomless pit. And then I found another message, one I could never have imagined. "The baby you're carrying will be a beautiful gift for us." That sentence echoed in my mind like an explosion, freezing me in place. The truth hit me like a bolt of lightning, and I couldn't even react. The baby that Victoria was carrying wasn't anyone else's, it was David's. That child was his. My whole body froze. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. A deep, overwhelming pain burst inside me, making me feel like I was no longer myself. Everything I had once believed in, every bit of trust I had given David, now felt like a shattered dream. The feeling of betrayal didn't come from Victoria alone. She wasn't David's biological sister, as I had always thought. She was adopted, and the relationship between them wasn't simply one of sibling affection. What I had believed to be familial love and protection was, in fact, a dark secret they had hidden for years. They had deceived me throughout our entire marriage. While I thought I was the most important person in David's life, they had been sneaking around, having an affair behind my back. A sense of numbness took over me, as if I no longer had the strength to stand. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. All of my emotions seemed to shut down. In a moment of clarity, I realized I had been a fool living in a world I had created for myself, only to realize, when the truth came, that I had been completely deceived. The betrayal hit like a brutal blow, rendering me motionless, breathless, frozen in place, staring at the phone screen in numb silence. In that moment, I couldn't scream or cry. I felt like a faint shadow, standing on the sidelines of my own life. I no longer felt like I existed in that space. Everything felt blurry, like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Though my heart was writhing in pain, I couldn't let my emotions consume me. I knew that if I allowed myself to fall apart, everything would spiral out of control. I couldn't let myself be crushed by the pain. I couldn't become the weak one in this battle. I sat down on a nearby chair, eyes fixed on the phone screen that was still lit, though I couldn't see anything anymore. There was only a heavy weight pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. One deep breath. I tried to let air fill my lungs to regain some clarity. I inhaled with difficulty, then slowly exhaled. I focused on each breath, each moment in the quiet space, as if I were trying to pull myself out of the pit of sorrow. And then a surge of anger rose within me, like a rising tide sweeping away every last bit of peace. I felt like smashing the phone, screaming to release the pain. But I didn't. I held it in. I couldn't let my emotions destroy everything, not now. I had learned, over the years, that when faced with betrayal, I had to remain calm, had to think clearly. Don't let your emotions control you, I whispered in my mind like a silent mantra. I knew that if I acted rashly, if I let my emotions explode, I would lose my only chance to confront the truth. I needed evidence. Clear, undeniable evidence to face David and Victoria. Evidence to put an end to all the lies, once and for all. I didn't want to live in the shadows of this betrayal any longer. And that was when I decided to hire a private investigator. I didn't know if it was the best decision, but at least it would help me find the truth I needed. I wanted evidence that couldn't be denied, proof I could bring to light and expose everything. I wanted to look the truth in the eye, with nothing left for them to explain away. The investigator began gathering information. Each day passed, and I received reports from him. Videos capturing their secret meetings, Victoria and David together, in places I never would have imagined. Small cafes, late-night rendezvous I never knew about. They talked, laughed together, shared affectionate gestures I had once believed were meant only for husband and wife. My heart twisted as I watched those videos. Their sweet words, their undeniable moments, all ripped apart the perfect illusion I had believed in for so many years. Then I found another message exchanged between David and Victoria. It was sent late at night, while I was fast asleep, completely unaware of what was happening. I won't let you worry. We'll be fine. That sentence echoed in my mind like a punch to the chest. I couldn't do anything but smile bitterly. It wasn't a happy smile, but one of bitterness and pain. Everything was too clear now. I could no longer pretend not to know. I could no longer live in that blindness. But I was no longer the weak one, no longer the person deceived in the dark. The anger was still there, but I didn't let it control me. I decided I would no longer allow them to deceive me. Everything was now just a matter of time. I wouldn't rush, but I would wait for the right moment to expose it all. They had lied to me for too long. Now it was time I took back what was rightfully mine. At that birthday party, the atmosphere was filled with joy and warmth at the beginning. Everything seemed perfect. My birthday cake was beautifully decorated, and my friends and family were all smiling and laughing, creating a space full of love. But when Victoria stood up and announced that she was pregnant, everything suddenly changed. Her words struck like a lightning bolt in the room. All eyes immediately turned to her, with waves of congratulations and applause erupting, making me feel invisible, no longer the center of the celebration. During the party, as Victoria once again tried to steal everyone's attention with the announcement of her pregnancy, I simply smiled politely, trying not to let my emotions show. I calmly replied, "That's wonderful." The words came out of my mouth blandly, but in truth, I was holding back a storm of emotion inside. While everyone's eyes remained on Victoria, I quietly reached into my purse and took out a thick folder. It was packed with evidence, text messages, bank statements, video clips of secret meetings between Victoria and David. Holding it in my hands, I felt my heart turn cold, but I didn't hesitate. I placed the folder on the table in front of everyone. I didn't need to say anything more. Everything was already clear, and I no longer wanted to hide the truth. Silence blanketed the room. All the laughter, the congratulations, everything was extinguished in an instant. The entire room seemed frozen, not a sound, only stunned and questioning gazes turning toward me. I looked straight at David. He had turned pale, his hands trembling as he stared at the pages in front of him. Victoria, who had always acted so confident, could barely stand. Her legs looked like they were about to give out. She was speechless, frozen in place. People around began opening the folder page by page, reading the undeniable evidence. The murmurs gradually turned into angry voices, like a fire spreading throughout the room. Unbelievable, one of my friends exclaimed, her voice filled with outrage. They lied to her. The whole room erupted with criticism, furious glances cast in their direction. The hurried explanations from David and Victoria no longer mattered. No one believed them, and no one wanted to listen anymore. After the evidence had been laid out clearly at that birthday party, everything changed in an instant. The room remained silent, a heavy silence, as if time itself had stopped. All eyes were on Victoria and David, but no one looked at them with sympathy or pity. There was no more family protection, no more cover for their wrongdoings. Everything had been exposed. David stood there, pale-faced, his eyes wide in disbelief at what he was seeing. He couldn't say a word, only stood silently, his face a mixture of confusion and despair. The people around began whispering, not about me, but about them, about how they had deceived me for all these years. A close friend of mine looked at David, shook her head, and said something I would never forget. What did he do to her? Those words were like a harsh slap to David's face. Victoria, beside him, had completely collapsed. She couldn't stand straight, bracing herself on the table to keep from falling, her eyes filled with panic. She was no longer the confident, arrogant woman from before. Her words now held no value. She hadn't just betrayed me, she had destroyed everything I had built with David. She had no one left. Everyone distanced themselves from her. No one wanted to be near. The cold stares of friends and family pierced through her like she was a stranger no one could accept. David tried to explain, but no one believed him anymore. Every word that came out of his mouth was meaningless. He said it was a mistake or a misunderstanding, but no one wanted to hear it. He hadn't only hurt me, he had ruined every relationship around him. No one trusted David anymore, because he had betrayed not just me, but everyone close to him. A few days later, David's family made their decision. His parents, who had once loved and supported us, asked David to leave their house. There were no comforting words for him, no forgiveness. They felt deeply hurt by what he had done. He hadn't only betrayed his wife, he had betrayed his family. David was kicked out of the house, with nowhere to return to, no one who wanted to see him. The price of his betrayal was too high. As for Victoria, she became a stranger in the eyes of everyone. Her friends distanced themselves. No one wanted to continue a relationship with someone who had caused so much pain to others. She was no longer welcome in the family, no longer had a place in the lives of those who once cared for her. The pregnancy she had so proudly flaunted now became nothing more than a filthy mark of betrayal and deceit. Her words no longer held any value, and all people felt toward her was pity, or even hatred. David and Victoria tried to say something, tried to explain, but their words were like whispers in the wind. No one paid attention. The entire family had turned their backs on them. David was kicked out of his parents' home. Victoria had no one left by her side. Her friends and relatives, those who had once stood by her, now avoided her. Harsh criticism continuously pushed her into isolation, and I could see her collapse in the panic she couldn't hide in her eyes. As for me, I didn't feel triumphant or satisfied. I no longer needed to prove anything because I already had everything I needed to reclaim what was rightfully mine. I had lost too much time in a marriage built on lies, but in the end, I reclaimed the truth and my self-respect. Not long after, the company invited me to return to work and offered me a promotion. They treated it as an apology for the injustice I had endured all that time. It was the recognition I truly deserved. I stepped out of that marriage with a strange feeling. I no longer felt sorrow, no longer felt humiliated or angry. I had seen the truth clearly, and I knew I needed to continue with my life. The company's invitation and promotion were a kind of reparation, but more importantly, they helped me find solid ground beneath my feet again. My family, my friends, they all stood by my side. I no longer had to hide my painful emotions. I began to live my life again, no longer haunted by old wounds. Being invited back to work was a well-deserved acknowledgement. But what mattered more was that I had found myself again. Not long after, I decided to travel to France to reunite with old friends I had missed during all those years living in the shadows of betrayal. It was a new beginning, a new life, no longer burdened by those I had once loved and trusted. I walked forward with my head held high, no longer carrying the weight of the past. My journey had only just begun, and I knew I would never return to the life I had left behind.